let me go ahead and teach you how to configure Docker so that we have the database up and running with a local network where we can execute the PSQL command as well running in Docker, and also how to save the data to our local machine using a volume. So this volume right here, so volume column, and this is to save the data to our local machine, because with containers, when it dies, then basically we lose all of the data, right? So let's go ahead together and open up the terminal or command line. And in here, remember, we have installed Docker. So Docker dash and then version. And this is my version currently, right? So make sure that you have Docker installed. Now, the first thing that we need to do is to create this Docker network right here. And we're going to name it as DB. So we create the network. And then once we create the container right here, then we just use this network so that this other container using PSQL can talk to this container on the other side called DB. So first, go ahead and type Docker and then network and then create, and then we give it a name. So DB for database, enter, and there we go. So now this has been created. If you want to delete, you say Docker network and then RM, and then you can say DB. So you can see that that now has been deleted, but we want to create a network called DB, and there we go. So now let's go ahead and in here, we're going to run a Docker container for Postgres. So here, what we need to do before we run any command is, so I'm going to create a folder in my desktop, and I'm going to name this as DB and then dash data. So DB dash and then data. And this is because of this volume right here that we want to have, right? So if we insert some students, then we want to store the state in this folder so that if we bring another container, right? So if this container, for example, dies, then we can bring another container and then we can just reuse the exact same data by mounting this folder right here. So in here, I'm inside of desktop right here, inside of desktop. So I'm going to navigate into and then DB dash and then data. There we go. Now I'm inside of this folder. Now what I want to do is to run the Postgres container. So say Docker, let me clear the screen there. So Docker run, and then I'm going to say dash dash name. So I want to name this as DB. Then I want to say dash and then P 5432 to 5432. So this first port is the host. So this is the port that we're going to use to access it. And this is the port inside of the container. So we're just mapping these two together. Then what we need is to say dash dash and then network. So basically in here we have the network. So we're just using it for this container. So network equals and then to DB. And here I'm going to type backslash for a new line. And then I'm going to say dash V for volume. And then here within double quotes, I'm going to say $ and then PWD. And then I'm going to map this into /var/lib/ Postgresql, and then / and then data. So this is where internally the container stores all of its data. And what we're doing, we're just saying PWD. So we're just mapping this from the container into PWD, where PWD is this DB data. So in fact, if I open up DB data, you see that it's empty. But in a second, you should see that we have some data. So then here I'm going to say dash and then E for environment variable. And I want to define the Postgres and then password. And this will be equal to password, just like that, /. And here I'm going to say dash and then D for running this in detached mode, and then post gress, post, and then gress. And basically at this point right here in this official page, we have these tags. So I can run any of these tags, to be honest. So here, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and pick the Alpine tag. So here, just say Postgres colon and then Alpine. If you want, for example, 13 Alpine, you can just say 13 and then Alpine if you want to play around with a specific version. So here, I'm just going to stick with Alpine and I'm going to press enter. And check this out. It seems that this container is up and running. So if I do a Docker and then PS, you can see that up status 8 seconds. And here we map the 543 on the host to 5432, or actually 5432 on the host to 5432 on the container. And the name is DB right here. And you can see this was the image. And remember the volume. So if I open up db-data, check this out. So you can see that this has a bunch of things, right? This is where Postgres is keeping all of the data, which means that if this container dies, for example, we can just reuse the exact same folder, db-data. And in fact, if I do docker rm-f and I want to delete this db right here, so db, that's the name. There we go. Now if I press the up arrow and run the exact same command, you can see that this folder right here still has all of the data, and we're just going to reuse it. So here, if I run it again, you can see that this works. Let's stop here and carry on the next video.